are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart and co-host, Joe DeLeone. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm pissed, Blake. I'm cutting you off already. I'm pissed off. I'm pissed off. Yeah, I was just leave it at that. I know what you're going to say. I'm mad. I'm obviously not in a good mood after seeing my team get knocked out.
I know that we have a lot to discuss with the college football playoff reaction. There's a lot in this sport I think that you and I need to talk about too. You were not you, Joe. You know what I mean when I say this. You and I had debates all offseason when people were just, oh yeah, no big deal, AQs. I never want to hear ever again from anybody on planet Earth about automatic qualifiers ever again. You were warned. You were warned last year. You're seeing a team in James Madison and Tulane get above Notre Dame, Vanderbilt, and Texas. That is a joke. That is a complete and utter joke. So we're going to react to the college football playoff, obviously recap the championship weekend that was the conference championships. We'll break that down too as well. We got a lot we need to get into, so we'll get to that now. Everyone do us a favor, hit the like and share to all those groups. Subscribe down below if you're on YouTube. We greatly appreciate it. Joe, our good partners and friends over at FanDuel already have those lines out. You can go and check those out. But you and I are proudly partnered and powered by our good friends over at FanDuel. Download the FD Sportsbook app today and use your mobile device to do so. So, Joe, let's get into it. We've got a lot to react to. The college football playoff is here, and, Joe, we got to react to the rankings and the seedings. Miami finally surpasses, and I say finally because we've been having this debate, but Miami moves above Notre Dame, which will be the obvious talking point. Notre Dame is the first team that is out in all this. I give you the floor, my man. What is your reaction to Notre Dame being out of the playoff?
Look, I said this to you right as I hopped in here. I really don't feel like rehashing an argument that we had 6 times. Everybody understands and knows my feelings on this. I thought that Notre Dame should have gotten the benefit of the doubt over Miami. I thought that the building out a resume and comparing teams is a lot deeper than just the head-to-head. I don't want to dig back into that. I have 2 serious freaking problems with the playoff committee and this barnyard selection process. The first is the simple fact that if you thought that Miami was better than Notre Dame, and I brought this up weeks ago when the statement came out that they didn't even compare Notre Dame and Miami was back at 18. If you thought that something like this could have happened, Miami should have been ahead of them from the jump.
Agreed.
You should have been ahead of them the entire time. And this whole sentiment reaction to this will be completely different. I probably wouldn't have put up as big of a fight because the committee committed to putting Notre Dame ahead of Miami and then last second changed when neither team played a game is backwards and stupid. The logic of those morons that are putting together these brackets doesn't make any sense. Like, I'm being quite honest with you here. I have no problem, actually, and I've said this before. I don't have a problem with Miami going ahead of Notre Dame because I think that there were arguments that could have been built for Miami, for Alabama being where they are, where Notre Dame is, for Vanderbilt getting in, and even, they have the worst argument, BYU getting in. But the issue that I have is that the fact that the committee can't build a criteria and stick to it is so stupid. The other thing, and you mentioned this, like, if there is not a good ACC team and the ACC champion isn't ranked and can't qualify, that spot needs to go to Notre Dame. Notre Dame plays half of an ACC schedule. That spot, if Notre Dame is ranked in as high as they were, has to go to Notre Dame. I don't want to watch JMU and Tulane lose by 30. Why are 2 spots going to teams that have 0 chance of winning this weekend? I don't want to hear the shit from the G5 fans as somebody who played FCS football that we deserve it. We earned it. We earned this chance to play there. Tulane has an unimpressive resume, and JMU's toughest opponent that they played was Louisville, and they lost. Like, I have so many problems with this.
By the way, speaking of your ACC thing, Tulane beat the ACC champion. They beat Duke. Just so everybody remembers, Tulane beat Duke. And here's another. Ole Miss blew out Tulane and ran the ball 24 straight times to end the game. So Notre Dame's argument, where we were arguing in the past, I think they got it right. For what it's worth, I think Miami should have been in over Notre Dame if it came down to it because of the head-to-head. You don't want to argue that. I get it. Everybody's trying to pit the Notre Dame versus Miami sentiment, which I understand. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't because it was the last spot. The head-to-head has got to matter. I think you and I, at the end of the day, agree the head-to-head's just got to matter. However, when you look at the situation of the automatic qualifiers, that is the ultimate problem. James Madison and Tulane do not belong. And what we've tried to do in this entire process is include everybody. The ACC outside of Miami doesn't belong. And I saw people all last night in the national media saying Alabama didn't belong, as an example. Okay, well, hold on. Alabama beat 3 teams with double-digit wins. Double-digit wins. Well, they lost to Florida State. Okay, I understand it. They also beat Georgia on the road. They also lost to Oklahoma, but they also got in a situation where they beat a top 15 team in Vanderbilt. Like, what are we doing here? What are we doing? So you're trying to compare, and everybody's trying to compare Alabama, Miami, and Notre Dame when Tulane and James Madison don't belong. They don't belong. Everybody talking about why did BYU move? BYU had 8 quarters against Texas Tech and scored 14 points. Alabama went on the road to Athens and won. They had 17 players out in the SEC title, 5 of them being starters, 3 along the offensive line. You had the tight end in Cuevas that was out. I get injuries are a part of this. And don't get me wrong that they're a part of it. What are we doing? We have to change the G5 rule. They don't belong. And it is about time that, Joe, this is going to get taken political. But we as a society try to be about equality. Sports has never been about equality. We go on the field to find out who's not equal. We literally do. And let me say this last thing before we talk about it more.
Yeah.
We talk about the eye test, right? Everybody wants to talk about the eye test. All right. Well, here's what the eye test told us before last night, that Ohio State should have beaten Indiana. So you can't tell me about your eye test. Your eye test means nothing when games on the field are actually played. So I think a couple of things. Like, number one, Alabama has the 6th ranked strength of schedule in the country and has 10 wins in that. You can't penalize them. With all due respect, you can't penalize them. I think that they messed up with A&M. How does A&M go from 3 to 7? Please tell.
I don't disagree with that. Well, I really want to quickly just add in here before we fully move away from the G5 thing. It is like a G League team in the NBA getting a spot in the NBA playoffs.
Yes.
That is the comparison. That's the comparison. That is what this is like. There is a gigantic gap in the on-field talent. If a G5 team is as good as the UCF or the undefeated UCF team or the undefeated Cincinnati team or even last year's Boise State team, who actually put up a little bit of a fight, but still, that was one of the best teams that we've seen from the G5 in the past 10 years, and they still got beaten badly.
And they got dog walked. Let's just be honest. They got dog walked. Let's be real. They got dog walked. I mean, Joe, Tulane beat the ACC champ. Tulane, the ACC champion. Like, I get that you have a last spot with Miami and Notre Dame. Like, I get that. And that's what everyone wants to pit up against. And I know, again, if we're talking about eye test, which eye test is eye test. Everybody picked Ohio State to beat Indiana. So you can't go off of the eye test. Okay? When you look at this whole situation, Everyone's going to pit Miami about not being in there. But they should have been based off of the criteria that we have. I mean, with all due respect, and Joe, we talked about this last week. They put Texas ahead of Vandy. And then they didn't do it. They didn't do it for Miami. I agree with you. The biggest thing that you said was you don't have a problem with Miami being over Notre Dame. I'm with you. Then you should have done it from the start. You can't move Notre Dame out the way that you – and this is my gripe with Notre Dame. You can't move them when they're idle. But because they were head-to-head and they were next to one another, they jumped them, which, again, from the beginning, I've been saying from the beginning, which has been our debate, that they should have been there from the beginning. They should have just been there from the beginning. But, Joe, this committee, look, man, they're doing this again, and this is going to expand the playoff. You know what you don't have to do? Expand. Let me tell you what you got to do. You ready? It's simple. Tell the G5 that they're not automatically in there and that they got to qualify like everybody else. They're at large like everybody else. You don't have to expand it, which is what they're trying to do. You don't have to do that. Notre Dame, and with all due respect, we should be having a debate between BYU, Texas, and Vanderbilt. That is what the debate should be. And the truth of the matter is Texas should be in there. I mean, if I'm Texas right now, to be blunt with you, I have just as much of a gripe as Notre Dame. Let me explain. You mean to tell me that I can go on the road to number 1 Ohio State, the Big Ten runner-up, and lose by 7? You mean to tell me that I can get in a dogfight with Georgia? You mean to tell me that I can beat the number 7 team, but fucking Tulane and James Madison get in over me? I mean, you said, not you, the committee said that strength of schedule would matter. That's why the SEC is going to 9 conference games. By the way, Joe, if I'm the SEC, I'm putting my hands up. You want me to tell you why? They have 11 teams in the top 15 of strength of schedule. 11. Now you're going to a 9th conference game. So if I'm Texas, if I'm Notre Dame, if I'm Vanderbilt, I have a massive problem. BYU, I'm sorry. I love you. You have no business remotely being close. You don't deserve to be in the top 15. And I think we all know that. But this is hosing more than just Notre Dame. This is hosing Vanderbilt. This is hosing Texas because Notre Dame and Texas both belong in there. Now, Joe, what if I would have told you in this entire process, instead of James Madison, you would have had Texas going to Oregon? What if I would have told you that you would have had Notre Dame going into Oxford?
But we get to watch JMU and Tulane. I bet the viewership for those games is going to be comically low.
One of them's on TNT because they know drama. You see the pun that I had there? But I mean, come on. We saw Tulane get boat raced. Joe, they put in a second string unit that ran the ball 20 straight times and scored 10 points. Hold on. Let me repeat what I just said. They put in a second string unit that ran the ball 20 times, straight times, and scored 10 points.
I'm trying to see if – I want to see if there's a line. I don't think that there's a line out. Okay. On FanDuel, 20.5 points for Oregon versus JMU. I'm betting 16.5 for Ole Miss versus Tulane.
You should. You should.
Oh, my God.
You should.
Absolute utter joke that this is what happened. But let's get a little bit more. I want to get a little more specific with the seeding because you brought up my first problem. I agree with you about A&M. I think the very just simple move up, A&M should have been at number 6 over Ole Miss.
I think they should have been at number 5. You know why? You know why? Because you moved them more drastically than anybody in the country. You moved them 6 spots.
I thought it was way too dramatic to have dropped them as far as they did, and I do think that it was very reactive to have done it because they lost to a team that was outside of the playoff bracket. The only slight pushback I put on that, Oregon's loss this season comes to the best team in the country, and it was by a score. I think that we gotta give Oregon a reframed look at how we see them. based on the way that they played the first time, because I think Indiana, once we get to the Big Ten championship game reaction later in the show, I think proved that they were a real challenge for Oregon. Because the thing is with Ole Miss, what are we going off of, like their true, most dominant, compelling victory that they deserve to be at 6 over A&M?
Well, it's not the victory, it's the loss. Ironically, going in.
Well, this is another contradiction, though. This is the entire other contradiction where the quality loss matters for one team, but it doesn't for another. Why are we discounting it for A&M, but we're not discounting it for
Ole Miss? Notice what they did too with Ohio State moving them at 2. They moved them back a spot.
Well, that's actually one of the few consistent things that they've done, because they didn't move Alabama. So they did establish, hey, as long as you went to your conference championship game, you had a good resume.
I mean, again, like I don't disagree with Oregon. I think you could put Oregon at 5. I do think Ole Miss. I mean, the one loss. I mean, I think you're splitting hairs there. I don't mind Oregon being at 5, but A&M. I mean, they're the lowest ranked number 1 or 1 loss team. I mean, like it is insane.
They also don't have their head coach too. They didn't even factor that in whatsoever.
No, not at all. They didn't even factor that in. Which, I mean, they don't have their wide receivers coach either. They don't have both of their wide receiver coaches. So I mean, I get it. I don't think for what it's worth though, if I'm A&M, I don't know if I completely hate it. I mean, Oregon, that number 5 seed, Oregon's got the best draw in all of this, if we're being blunt, because they got James Madison and then they got Texas Tech, who I think they still can beat. Because I got to be blunt with you on something, Joe. You're going to yell at me, and here it goes. I think Texas Tech is fraudulent. I think they're fraudulent. I don't think defensively they're fraudulent, because the best defense that you have seen, you barely could move the football and you couldn't separate when they had no offensive identity whatsoever. And I think Oregon is better than BYU holistically as a team. And that is not a good matchup for you. That you're about to go up against a better defense than what you just saw in BYU. And there were moments and times that you struggled against the best opponent twice through 8 quarters, and you could barely move the football. I mean, that is just a fact. That's not even an opinion at this point, that BYU couldn't move the ball. Your defense, yes, you played really well. But Oregon's got the best draw in all of this. And here's another thing. The number 5 seed, yet again, it might be the best thing to not play in your conference championship game and go to 5 moving forward based off of what the criteria of what we've seen so far has been. But I think Texas Tech is fraudulent, because I think Oregon's a far better team than BYU. And I think that, like, when I look at Oregon as an example, it's the Penn State thing of last year, right? You get James Madison, Texas Tech, and you'll get the winner out of Indiana, Alabama, Oklahoma. Oregon sets up beautifully here to not only make a deep run, Joe, but to honestly make a national title run based off of their seeding.
Okay, here's the only thing. I don't disagree with 70% of what you just said about Texas Tech. I don't like using the word fraudulent, because
it might be too harsh.
I think that Texas Tech defensively has one of the best front sevens in the playoff field. I think that they showed the way that they manhandled BYU, that once again, their pass rush and the interior of the defensive line, their linebacker unit, they're going to keep any game close because of how good they are. Mm-hmm. But I agree with what you're bringing up here. Their offense twice now having issues with finishing drives and putting points on the board after they get into the red zone. It's a little concerning. The reverse of this is they have the most difficult path, because Oregon is a really bad matchup for them. Oregon's going to run the ball really well. If there's a team that's going to be able to really, really go at you at the line of scrimmage, it's going to be Oregon. And even if Texas Tech wins that game, they then have to play Indiana, most likely, that also is going to go right at you and is also going to be able to really, really battle you up front with their front seven. So Texas Tech, if there's a team that a seeded top 4 seeded team with a bye that gets knocked off early, sadly, it probably is Texas Tech. I agree with the Oregon thing for the most part. They, to me, are the best position to, I wouldn't call them a dark horse because they're the 5 seed, but the non-bye team that can go on a run to go to the national championship, to me, it's Oregon. The biggest benefit they have ultimately out of all this is I think that Oregon and Indiana and Ohio State are all closer together in terms of quality of team than people maybe wanted to admit earlier on. Getting a chance to replay Indiana, and we always talk about it's hard to beat a good team twice. They then have the right. They have that advantage there of getting the opportunity to reevaluate. I mean, ask Oregon from last year. They got dogged by Ohio State when they played them the second time around. So Oregon could be that team that goes to the national championship that doesn't have a bye.
Yeah, I think that they're by far and easily the best and by far I mean, I just don't think it's close when you look at their path. I think A&M's is the toughest, or Miami's is the toughest. I think you look at Georgia, man. I mean, your Ole Miss is probably going to beat Tulane, and so you prolong this thing with the LSU and Kiffin saga. But I think that Georgia has a much easier path than what people want to give them credit for. But you notice what they did, don't you? Just to be blunt, look at how the seeding is. You have the SEC versus the Big Ten matching up on both sides of the bracket. So when notice what they did. So when we were talking earlier about putting A&M where they put A&M, why you put them at 7 instead of 6 or whatever, which they deserve to be at 6. Well, you can't get the SEC versus the Big Ten without that. You couldn't. So they didn't want to move that situation. They probably didn't want Ole Miss and Ohio State facing off with one another either, because they know that A&M probably gives them the best chance to win there. Look, all in all, Joe, in reference to this playoff, I don't mind the 10 teams that got in. Okay? I don't mind 1 through 10. I don't mind where they're ordered. To be completely blunt with you, I can live with it. It's 11 and 12 that we'll continuously have the problems with, and how god-awful it is. We have to change this as a sport. We have to change it. These teams don't belong, and I'm so tired of these people in the media that cover those teams that try to make the argument, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't. Stop being an asshole. Stop. I mean, because James Madison and with all due respect to Tulane, they're about to get boat raced.
If neither of those teams play competitively and neither of them cover, it really, I think, solidifies our stance on this stuff. And to your point, anyone who keeps defending them, it's a bunch of fluff. It's a bunch of nonsensical fluff that thankfully there actually aren't very many logical, the typical media members that have a good pulse on college football. I haven't heard any of them defending the G5.
No, should they?
It's a lot of the same people that love to defend SMU last year that are going to give a case for JMU and Tulane.
Well, look, hold on. Before we blame all JMU and Tulane, if Virginia wins last night, Virginia's playing at Oregon. So regardless of the team that's actually in there, we have to do away with automatic qualifiers. Newsflash to all of you Rudy Poos out there. I keep hearing, Joe, people say do the 5 plus 11, do the 5 plus whatever it is, 13, 12, whatever it is. 5 plus 11, whatever. Are you that dumb? You just saw this in back-to-back years where automatic qualifiers literally are the dumbest thing ever. You saw Clemson last year, and look at what you have now. Look at what you have now. I'm never, and I mean ever. So to all the people that have defended Tony Batiti, the people on CBS, Danny Cannell, all of you Rudy Poos that are out there defending the AQ model, you are dumb. Look where we are. And I will debate this until my grave. There's no way in back-to-back years you can justify this.
No. Here, I actually, you watched the John Gruden video, right?
You know where AQs work? Let me tell you why they work. Well, kind of. But you know where they work? In an NFL with 32 teams.
Yes. Yes.
This is not 32 teams. We're trying to do AQ models in reference. Joe, between the SEC and the Big Ten, we have 32 teams. We actually have 34 teams. So the NFL doesn't have two teams more than the two biggest conferences. So if it was just the SEC and it was just the Big Ten, fine. Do your silly little AQ model. But this is out of hand. This is out of hand. You should have the top 12 teams in there. And by the way, last thing for me on this, there's not 5 teams in all of this that can win it all. There isn't.
I disagree. I think that there's a large field of teams that arguments could be made for.
I don't think anybody outside the left side of the bracket besides Indiana and Oregon can win it. To be completely blunt with you, on the right side of the bracket, I don't think any one of those teams can beat Ohio State and or Georgia. We are on a collision course right now. Hey, you know who, by the way, besides Indiana, who has the best rankings of blue chip recruits? The 3 teams that are going to be there and Indiana, hypothetically speaking. So you keep talking about equality and blue bloods, and Tim Brando with his fake comb over comes out there and says, we need automatic qualifiers. Now look at yourself.
First of all, I think that John Gruden put out a really intriguing concept, which is technically an expanded playoff, but he made a really good point. Teams that aren't in their conference championship shouldn't be sitting around and just donking around. They should be playing games this weekend, and we should have had opportunities to prove it on the field. We've all these teams that have flawed schedules where they played easy schedules. Well, put up or shut up.
You know what
I said this? What?
Next week, Notre Dame would face off against Tulane or James Madison.
Oh, depending on who lost, you should make them.
Texas would face off against Tulane or James Madison.
That would be a nice little signature, but we probably won't get that.
No, we're not.
2 other things, though. I slightly push back on. These are the teams that I think realistically wins a national championship. I think Indiana can. I think Georgia can. I think Ohio State can. I think Oregon can. And I'm going to throw in there an unexpected team. Like if there is a team that is a lower seed that were to go on a run, I do think that Texas A&M is a team to watch.
But that's 5 teams. I said only 5 teams can win it. That's 5 teams, Joe. So we agree.
My argument for Texas A&M, though, I think that we're allowing a singular recent performance against Texas where they did obviously play very poorly, did not play a great game on the road. Their run defense showed up to be a liability, as we have talked about. But when they're playing at their best and Marcel Reed is protecting the football a little bit better, they are one of the most dangerous teams in college football. They have ridiculous speed on the outside. They have a really good pass rush. If they play a little bit better against the run, Blake, I think that there is a chance that we could see an A&M upset Ohio State, and we could see A&M upset Georgia. I don't think it's likely. They're the last team that I would pick of that mix of teams that could win a national title this year because they're the most flawed of that mix. But if I were to kind of project a unexpected team that goes on a title run, A&M feels like the team that I can make the best case for.
By the way, since we're talking about that, oh boy, Elks is going to get mad. Remember when I said you couldn't run the ball? So you keep talking about A&M. You keep saying, well, if they could stop the run, can Ohio State effectively run the football? You had 58 rushing yards last night.
It's a fair point.
I mean, we kept talking about adversity. Well, here's the truth. You got punched in the mouth and you had no idea how to respond. All right, let's move forward here. Speaking of the Big Ten, Joe Curtsignetti, the greatest Italian football coach to ever walk the planet Earth, not named Vince Lombardi, in year 2 at Indiana, gets it done, beating the Ohio State Buckeyes to win the Big Ten 13-10. Joe, when you recap this game, what are your thoughts?
Indiana completely silenced the doubters. Completely.
Myself included.
Blake, I am exactly. Blake, I'm just so impressed with the way that they played. Blake, I think that last year we saw an Indiana team that did not have the bodies along the line of scrimmage in order to go toe-to-toe with the top teams in college football. And now they do. Their front seven won them this game. They stopped the run. They were getting a lot of penetration. They pressured the heck out of Julian Sayin. They produced sacks in critical moments. Like, this Indiana team, it felt like a lot of people were unsure if they could win a national championship this year. It felt like a lot of people were framing there should be an asterisk next to that number 2 ranking. I think that they easily proved a national championship is in their sights because they have the 2 things that national championship winning teams need. As I just mentioned there, a physical front seven. But most importantly, they have a quarterback who can make clutch throws in critical moments. Fernando Mendoza had multiple instances in this game where he stepped up to the plate and made the biggest plays in the game. This is why I kept talking about why it's important to be tested throughout a season. You have to be able to face adversity and to overcome it. I don't care the opponent. Late in the game, what do you do when can you put your nuts on the table and prove to everybody, this is who I am, we're winning this damn game? And he did it once again. Blake, we said this numerous times about Ohio State, and we got a ton of pushback from Ohio State fans. We didn't know what Ohio State was going to look like late in a game because it never happened for them this year because they weren't challenged. Lo and behold, the drive that they needed points on the board, it stalled at the very end. They miss a field goal, and that effectively took them out of the game. Like, this stuff is more meaningful than people want to realize. It's not just as simple as the bodies on the field and the results that you've produced. It's mental. There is an ability to have a mental fortitude to succeed in those situations is incredibly meaningful. And I think that Curt Cignetti is the perfect example of a coach that puts that personality into his team.
Well, you talked about the drive with the missed field goal. What about the drive before where they went for it on 4th down in the red zone and tried a quarterback sneak and got stopped?
So 190-pound quarterback.
With a 190-pound quarterback. You know, what's interesting about this, too, is I felt like Ohio State, to your point, I'm not trying to take away from Indiana here. So don't act like I'm trying to take away from Indiana because I'm not.
Okay.
But you had 2 times in the game where you could have at least tied the game, and you went for it on 4th down and you failed, and you missed a field goal. Indiana gave you all the opportunities in the world until Becker went on that fade. And quite honestly, got to be real with you, the best receiver on the field last night was not Jeremiah Smith. It was Becker. I mean, without a doubt, a white kid from Nashville, as as the broadcast kept saying, kept coming up with the big plays. Joe, there wasn't a lot of separation with the team. But the biggest thing, too, is I felt like Indiana, and I get the yardage and rushing is going to be deflated because of the sacks with Julian saying, when it came down to critical moments, you couldn't run the football. You're in the mid-50s, now in the 60s in the country and running the football, and you've had a really, with all due respect, a pretty soft schedule that the toughest and most physical team that you played when you lined up against Indiana, they kept punching you in the mouth. Joe, they had 5 sacks. I felt like Ohio State got more I mean, I hate to say it like this. I thought Caden Curry had more sacks than he did because how disruptive he was the entire night. But it was Indiana that came away with 5 sacks. And I got to be real with you. The broadcast and Joel Klatt kept talking about this and showing this during the game. There were a lot of times that Julian Sayin didn't let things go uncorked that he should have let uncorked. There was the seam route by Brandon Ennis when he's wide open that quite honestly would have ended the game, that he's sitting there and he takes a sack. There's the one with Jeremiah Smith where he's running a dagger route across the middle, and I understand that he's got to kind of manipulate the pocket, but he doesn't manipulate the pocket and takes a sack. Those situations, because I felt like Indiana allowed you over and over and over and over again to take control of the game. We talked about the last 2 drives of the game there. But I think of the third quarter when you got to punt the ball away because it's 3rd and 2 and you can't run the football. I think of Julian Sayin trying to throw an out route to Carnell Tate and he misses and it's in front of the marker. Like, those are the things that I felt like, yes, was Indiana highly impressive. But we kept talking about all year that Ohio State just could not ever overcome we haven't seen them overcome adversity. And when adversity came, they didn't know how to overcome it. The processing for Julian Sain, by the way, Joe, he got confused a lot and he got sacked a lot because of it.
I also think that one aspect of this that was really compelling, and those are good points to bring up here. One of the philosophies defensively in football that we see that it's risky and it requires elite execution. When you're facing a team that has an elite player, one of the best players in the sport, going out there and saying, we're going to leave Jeremiah Smith be, and we're going to prevent everything else from working. They focused on the line of scrimmage and stopping the run. Carnell Tate was bottled up for the most part. Jeremiah Smith went over 100 yards. He had a huge game. But it felt like because everything else wasn't open, and the general hubris of Ohio State to just think, oh, we're going to eventually get things going on the ground. We're eventually going to find Carnell Tate. That was what opened the door for Indiana to win this game close. They understood, hey, we've got a bunch of dudes who execute, that perform their assignments at a high level. They get everything done. They've done it all year long. It has been the mantra of Curt Cignetti: fast, physical, relentless, focusing on all of those things. They didn't lose because Jeremiah Smith went off. They were able to win this game because they were so effective at stopping the guys that were capable of stopping.
Mm-hmm.
I think that to me is a really
and to add to that, they couldn't stop. To the inverse of that, they couldn't stop Becker. Joe, he had 6 catches. 3 of them came on third down. The deep post, the deep fade. Guess what downs they came on? By the way, the best call of the night is throwing a fade route on 3rd and short, because they're going to go man to man, and Becker's release was insane. I don't know where you have him on your draft board. It better be high.
I haven't watched him. It wasn't even on the radar, to be quite honest.
He better be on the radar now. The back shoulder throw, you talk about Mendoza. I've been hard on Mendoza. I still think that there's some throws that he wishes that he had back, but the 2 biggest ones, the back shoulder to Surratt and then the fade to Becker, put it away. But again, Joe, let me ask you this. Why do I walk out of this game and saying that I feel like Ohio State just didn't take advantage of situations? Like when I recap this game, if somebody said, Blake, recap this game, my only sentence is Ohio State kept getting opportunities and kept failing. Now, you could say, well, Blake, Indiana kept them out of that. They didn't keep them out of field goal range. Ohio State missed it. You talk about the 4th down. Julian Sain slipped. That's not on Indiana. He had the surge. We saw him have the surge. That's why they gave him the first down to start off with. I just walk out of this game saying to myself, it's not a shot at Indiana because they came away with the win. They won the Big Ten. They're the only undefeated team in the country right now.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I just keep walking back to, man, Ohio State gave this one away in a lot of situations. So I know that sounds like a horrible way to describe it, but Joe, how many times do we talked about 4 big moments in the game. Okay. The 4 big moments, 3 of them come from Ohio State. The 4th down, the missed field goal, and the untimely sack by Julian Sain. And then the 4th down call, by the way, they run a waggle and a play action to the running back, and Julian Sain has no one open. It's a horrible play call.
I think that the better way of framing this is, first of all, Indiana and Ohio State were much closer to one another than anyone was willing to give them credit. And when you have margins that are very small and you've got teams like this going head to head, to your point exactly, the team who executes better is going to be the team that wins. And I saw an Indiana team on both sides of the ball execute in those critical areas. You've got that 4th and short conversion where you had the tight end leak out. It was like 4th and 2, and Mendoza connected in that spot. I believe they ended up with a field goal on that drive, but it's mirrored situations where
they missed.
Oh, that is correct. But there were mirrored situations where they needed conversions on important 3rd down spots in order to continue things rolling on drives, scoring drives, important scoring drives. They executed while Ohio State did not. That's what it comes down to winning football games. When the margins are slim, who finishes? And that's where Indiana has, I think, taken to the furthest degree where sometimes the most talented team doesn't win out. It's the team that's the most focused and that does their job the best. And dude, this is the biggest part, I think, with all this that we haven't even said. Indiana's coaching staff needs to be recognized as
they
being
do.
better, not better than Ohio State's, like truly, but they outcoached them. They outcoached them. They out-prepared them. They out-executed them. They outcoached them in that game. You just mentioned some play calls.
You said they don't need to be better than I mean, they don't have the same level of talent, and they just beat them.
It's a good point.
I mean, did you see the thing that was posted? Ohio State from blue chip ratio with portal included is third in talent and blue chip ratio. Indiana is 76th.
That's insane.
Yeah. I mean, so again, by the way, I got to give Caden Curry a lot of credit. Without him, though, there were times they got pushed around. I'm sorry. The black long run. I mean, Ohio State, man, you better figure it out. You got to execute in adverse situations. All right, Joe, stop me if you've heard this sentence before. Georgia wins the SEC. Now, a lot of people thought going into this game, Georgia and Kirby would not be able to overcome the Alabama curse, but not only did they overcome the curse, they absolutely dominated Alabama. Alabama had -3 total rushing yards in this game. Now, I know Alabama had a lot of injuries, and guys will be back for the playoffs. But, Joe, when you recap Georgia versus Alabama, how did you see it?
Georgia is the hottest team in college football right now. Let's just be really direct. Georgia is the hottest team in college football right now, and they should be everybody's national championship pick. They should be the team that everyone is projecting to win a title. This is different than last year. Last year, it felt like they got a flat tire and they're just dragging their way through it. And they just did everything they could to get through the SEC championship game and then showed up and lost to Notre Dame. They figured out how to fix their mistakes midseason. Very few teams could do that. Very, very few teams middle of the year have a glaring, massive problem and resolve it. Their defense was good, but they had no pass rush. 3 sacks again. They had 9 sacks in the month of November, just had 3 more. Like, this Georgia team with a pass rush is the most dangerous in college football. The way that they are playing on defense, that they were just attacking Alabama to the point where Ty Simpson looked overwhelmed. That whole Alabama offense looked just completely out of sorts, could not find any rhythm whatsoever. Georgia's defense makes them the most dangerous team in college football at the current moment. And the biggest part with all this is that you don't even need Gunnar Stockton to take over. You don't even need Gunnar Stockton to do anything crazy. You just need the run game to pop the way that it was and their defense to force turnovers and get big sacks. And heck, you block a punt the way that you did too. That also helps. Like, I'm really locked into this Georgia team, and I think that everybody needs to be talking about them as that title favorite.
How many times is Kirby going to do something on special teams that completely changes outcomes? 3 years ago, he calls a timeout when Ohio State is running a fake punt, would have gotten the first down, and could have won the football game. But he calls the timeout literally seconds before, and Ohio State winds up punting the football, and Georgia winds up winning. They go on to win their second national title. Against Texas a couple of weeks ago, he calls an onside kick, and they recover. They wind up blowing out Texas. And then after trading a couple of, I don't want to say meaningless drives, but they were, you blocked a punt, and then you scored a touchdown. And then you physically leaned on Alabama. There is not a better special teams coach and not a better coach in the country with better feel about special teams more than Kirby Smart. It doesn't exist.
Maybe Marcus Freeman. He didn't steal his bit.
Well, I mean, you say that, but Joe, did you see the stat during the SEC championship game? They've blocked 18 kicks the last 6 years. Like, I mean, I'm with you. He's 18-0.
I'm mostly saying that facetiously because he stole that bit, but like the rush onto the field thing, and it's
okay,
clever.
okay. Well,
that was why I was saying that, but I agree with you.
Hold on, they did it to Georgia, if you remember.
No, that's my point, is that he saw that happen and he clearly stole it. He did it earlier in the year too, but that's what makes him a good coach, is that he saw, damn, that shit worked, so we got to go do it. But I agree with you. That to me is the most underrated part about Kirby.
Without a doubt. They lean on you. That game was much worse than 28-7. Much worse. Oh, man. You know what the most impressive thing for me with Georgia is their secondary improving the way that they have. I think that you've talked about all season, they're not getting a pass rush. Joe, I felt like that Kirby was so hesitant, Schumann was so hesitant to send pressure because their DBs were getting cooked. Go back to Tennessee week 3. Now that you have these young DBs, these 5-star young DBs playing the way that they are, now they're attacking the passer. The style and the way and the physicality that they played and that they played it with last night, Joe, they just lined up and punched him right in the mouth, and there was absolutely nothing Alabama could do about it. Nothing. From the opening whistle to the end, and I still felt like that they played conservatively. Joe, in the second half, they played conservatively. They kept running the ball. I know you tweeted this. You're like, I hate when teams run the ball on 3rd and 6. They didn't care. They ran the football. They punted it. They got a 3-and-out, and they got the ball back, and they played field position. I mean, that was the part for me. I'm like, oh, my God, they're toying around with him. They know that they can't get a first down. And Kirby lost his mind when he put in some second-string guys, and Bernard scored. And I get all of that. But, dude, they toyed around with him. And I got to be real. You said Gunnar Stockton didn't have to win the game. Joe, 3 times on 3rd down, he ran for a first down. 3 times. I mean, so you say that, and then the big Dylan Bell throw in the end zone, they just feel so complete to me. There's not one thing that they do that's like, oh, my God, they do this better than everybody. But they're so freaking good at every level of why they've been dominating over the last 6 weeks.
I think that ultimately this is the biggest bit here, is that they've been dominating. I think that a lot of people that ignore the chaos of rivalry weekend were trying to use the Georgia Tech game of evidence that they've got issues. No. When they're playing in games that matter the most, with everything on the line, Georgia has stepped up to the plate, and they've done more than step up to the plate. They've dominated. They've overpowered. They've put their opponents into the ground. They have completely smothered them. And you bring up a good point. They you get to the 3rd quarter, felt like they understood, hey, they're not getting back into this. We don't need to go all in. We need to protect our guys for the next college football playoff round when we play our game. We can handle these dudes. That is what makes them the most scary. They're the team, understandably, we're going to talk about Texas Tech in a second, and their win was impressive. The way that Georgia won, and it felt so effortless, is why they have to be the team that we're all talking about to win the title. And I know that it's a little weird to talk about the teams that have the buys, considering the lack of success from the teams that had the buys last year. Maybe that changes this season. Georgia having a chance to try this for a second time, I think that they're going to take full advantage of it. And
Gunnar Stockton has 13 starts under his belt now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Bama, just to hit on Bama, by the way, -3 rushing yards. Are you kidding me? You can't run the ball again?
I've been saying for 6 weeks about their interior of their offensive line. How many times in the comment section on YouTube have I been getting obliterated by Alabama fans saying that your interior offensive line is getting pushed around? Do you believe me now? I mean, I'm not trying to be that cocky asshole here. Joe, they're getting obliterated. They're getting obliterated in the interior of their offensive line. I mean, bottom line. Now, Joe, you're trying to get 2 freshman running backs to football and Deere. You're trying to get 2, and Hill involved. Here's the problem, though. They have 7 rushes combined. At what point did you think that Ty Simpson was going to throw the ball 39 times and that you were going to win this thing?
It's clueless.
I mean, so what? You're going 3 yards in a cloud of dust. Now they moved Ryan Grubb from the box down to the field. It made it worse. It's made it worse. Here's just the truth. Bama's a good team, not a great team. They are not physical in the interior of their offensive line at all. They keep getting pushed around in there. But Georgia's probably the most physical in the interior of their defensive line. Joe, their lack of ability to run the football is damning. It's damning. I mean, they haven't been able to run the football, but here's the thing too, man. They've been beat up, and a lot of these guys are going to come back. It's tough to beat a team twice. I know they got Oklahoma. If they can't find a way to run the football, Oklahoma, Indiana are going to patty smack them, regardless of who it is. It's going to catch up to you. You're not a national title contender. I still believe you deserve to be in the playoffs. It's not what I'm saying. But at the same time, Joe, they -3 rushing yards. Think about this. 15 teams in the SEC had more rushing yards this week than Alabama. Only 2 played.
Yeah. I saw that tweet too. That was it's a good bit. It's a good bit.
It's true. It's true. I mean, like, my goodness. Here, I got to be real with you. I think Kalen DeBoer's biggest fault right now is he doesn't understand how to be physical in moments where you might just have to punt the ball away, but you got to start leaning in on physicality.
Here's my biggest bit. I agree with that. Here's my biggest bit, and I know the portal hasn't opened, so there hasn't been any declarations. And it's kind of interesting. I kind of like that guys are being a little more patient. They're not jumping in immediately after the season's over. I think that Monday's probably going to be a pretty crazy day. You got to go and get a Jahmyr Gibbs. They did this a couple of years ago. They went and got Jahmyr Gibbs, who was the #1 running back in the transfer portal coming out of Georgia Tech. You needed a spark in your run game, and you got it. They need to, whoever the #1 running back is that they evaluate on their board of guys that end up becoming available, they need to go all in, because I think that they have a running back room, even with Jam Miller when he's healthy and available. They have a running back room of secondary guys. You do not have a dynamic, game-changing playmaker. Georgia has 2 guys like that. And then they got their big dump truck secondary guy with McCray. You do not have someone who
got a fullback who's 250 pounds who gets the rock too. I mean,
seriously, like, they got to go find someone, because Deere and Hill and Miller are all guys that are good in certain situations. You need a spark plug. You need a guy that you can use as a creative weapon. That was the difference when DeBoer was at Washington. He had some guys that were good athletes that can make some big plays. They don't have that right now. They got to go find that.
Well, and again, you're not dynamic enough at wide receiver to do the things that you want to do. And I gotta be blunt with you. I think Ryan Williams had a good game. He disappears in the biggest moment. Joe, I mean, you mean to tell me that Everett's supposed to be man on man and locking him down on the 3rd down critical throw when you're down 14-0? I mean, I'm supposed to be told that he's the second best receiver in the country. I got to be blunt with you. He's not he's the second best receiver on his own team.
Yeah.
Jeremy Renard is better than him right now, and they need to focus in on that. All right. We are not getting to the ACC championship game. Congratulations to Duke on winning the ACC. The ACC sucks. The ACC completely sucks. So we'll leave it at that. You know who doesn't suck? Texas Tech dominates BYU yet again. The Red Raiders and Joey McGuire, who got very teary-eyed after winning the Big 12 for the first time since 1945. The Tortillas are rolling in the state of Texas with our good friends at Texas Tech. Joe, this was both of our Big 12 winners, in the beginning of the season. We are justified on two conferences out of the 4. Both of us picking Georgia and you picked Texas.
I picked Texas.
We both picked Texas Tech. And the Red Raiders get it done. Here, I'm going to start off with this and just kick it over to you. The most impressive thing with this whole thing with Texas Tech, they gave up 2 touchdowns to BYU in 8 quarters. That is insane. By the way, after the first one, in the beginning of the game, they barely could get past the 50-yard line, could BYU. Complete and utter domination by the Red Raiders and Joey McGuire.
We were completely justified because everything that we said came to fruition both times that BYU played Texas Tech. Quite simply, Blake, the separation of talent between Texas Tech and all the rest of the Big 12 teams was gigantic. Mm-hmm. It's the only conference that this happens where it's not even close. They have a roster that is not the typical ones we find in the Big 12 because their front seven is so freaking good. Dude, BYU scored their first drive and they couldn't do anything again, just like the last time that they played. Every time they tried to run the ball, stopped at the line of scrimmage or in the backfield. The penetration that they were getting on LJ Martin and Bear Bachmeier when they were trying to run the ball was ridiculous. We're not even talking about a unit that was stepping up and stopping at the line. They were ripping through the BYU offensive line. Then to have your linebackers to make all of those big plays, those turnovers, was mesmerizing. Blake, I agree with what you brought up earlier. I do think that it's a little concerning that they're not finishing drives effectively, especially against the best defense that they've played. They got to be better. They got to execute better. They can't keep leaving points off the board. They just can't keep doing that if they want to win a playoff game. But defensively, they're going to keep them in any matchup that they have coming up. They're going to be able to because you've got two NFL pass rushers. You've got some really good linebackers.
In the middle, Jesus.
It is a great front, and I think that this Texas Tech squad just continues to flex its muscles. Regardless of what happens in the playoff, I love the direction of this team and the commitment, and I'm glad that we're seeing more brands put their money where their mouth is, and Texas Tech has done it. That was one thing we said during the offseason. They're putting their money where their mouth is, and it's showing up, and it's paying off.
The best team that you played in BYU, in 120 minutes, you gave up 14 points off of touchdowns. That is insane. I mean, it is utterly insane. You know, I thought BYU scoring on that first drive, I was like, well, you know, you're going into a second game. You're probably doing all the things that you would have changed. And then you just can't move the ball. The interceptions were horrible. Jacob Rodriguez was all over the field. I think he had like 14 tackles on the day. Joe, the instinctive nature of the way that Texas Tech plays in the front seven, it wasn't just the tackles for loss. Like when Brockmeyer tried to throw a screen, the ball gets batted up in the air and it falls incomplete. Then the second time, it gets picked. They are just they're talented. Okay, what I want to try to make this point, and hopefully it lands. They are talented, but they're more than talented. They might be one of the most instinctive front sevens in the country. The way that they get after quarterbacks and how they just disrupt things in the front seven is showed up in both games versus BYU. BYU just had way too many turnovers. They had 5 total turnovers in the 2 games versus Texas Tech that mostly were forced outside of the muff punt by BYU in game 1. They dominated. They ran the ball. They leaned on them. They were able to separate at wide receiver and make some big plays. The catch by Aiken, oh my good heavens. The touchdown. I mean, my God. I mean,
that was a beautiful throw, beautiful catch. Throw. Oh my God.
I mean, insane. Virgil. I mean, my God, the way that he's getting out of breaks. They are by far the best team in the Big 12, and they're the most talented team in the Big 12 and the best coach team in the Big 12. And it's really easy to be really well coached when you got really freaking good players. However, I know we talked about this when we were breaking down the playoff. You are about to go up likely against Oregon. And you've had also 120 minutes to separate yourself. You can say, well, Blake, they separated themselves yesterday, and you're not completely wrong. But when you watch the game, Joe, I felt like there was something missing. Like I felt like that the level of talent that they had and the way that they dominated in the game 1 and game 2, it should have been worse. Now, I don't know if it's like they weren't locked in. I don't know what to make of it because we haven't seen you go up against a high-quality opponent that likely that you're going to see against Oregon. Can't do that against them because you're facing off against a better defense in about a month that is going to be physically dominating in their interior. You were probably right on the word that I used earlier is probably a wrong one. I don't know what the missing link to them is because I think that they're really, really freaking good on defense. Something feels off with them offensively. And I don't know if it's Morton. I don't know what they're not separating when they need to. And here's the point that I would make. Joe, Texas Tech yesterday had the opportunity to dominate and probably get more than a fourth seed. They were 8 for 19 on third down. They were horrible on third down in game one. What do you think Dan Lanning and company are going to do to you? You only had 374 yards of total offense when, quite honestly, I'm looking at all the possessions that you had. Joe, they had 19 third downs. When I look at time of possession as an example, a team that doesn't want to have time of possession, I mean, like, you had the ball more than they did. I don't know what to put how to put my thumb on it here. But I look at this and say to myself, something feels like it's missing, even though you have a dominating, endearing defense that is going to keep you in every game if you allow them to.
Well, I think that it was clunky. I think that would be the word I would use.
Twice.
I know. That's why I feel a little off. I want to fully commit to them and say, hey, I think Texas Tech could win a title. I think that they're not fully there yet. This is a huge, tremendous leap to have gotten there. But look at Indiana. Indiana took 2 years to get to the point where they're built up to becoming an elite team. You have taken a bigger leap than anyone in college football. We're seeing that the 2 times you've been challenged, you've played really well, but you're not finishing to the degree that you need to. And I don't want Texas Tech fans to think that we're knocking them. We're not. We're just being as effectively. We're critical of every team when they win. We do this with every team. When you don't win in a way that you should, they should have beaten BYU by 40. I'm not trying to downplay the performance by saying that. As you mentioned here, this is the most important part with this. The reason why we're bringing this up is because your next matchup is against a really good Oregon team. Like a really good example of a team that was really good, that we questioned some of their flaws, was Ohio State. We also did this with Texas A&M, and eventually those flaws caught up to them. I foresee, and we're going to do our first round predictions tomorrow, although I guess this game's not going to apply for this, but I foresee Oregon and that game being close, and if you leave points off the board and you go out there and you don't finish, they're going to take advantage of you. That is not the team to do that against.
If you play the way that you played against BYU the last 2 times, it's not going to be close. Hold on now. You can't. Hold on now. You can't do that against teams like Oregon. You can't do that against teams like Indiana or Ohio State or Georgia. Quite frankly, you know who else you can't do it to, just hypothetically speaking? You can't do that to Oklahoma either. Because, look, Oklahoma is the least talked about team in this playoff. And I tell you what, that's the best defense that you would see. I mean, I know that they can't score, but, Joe, my God. I mean, like, we're acting like anybody on that side of the bracket, if you do that to, they're going to boat race you. Maybe Oklahoma's the only one that won't. But you're about to join the big leagues here. Go show that you belong. We love Texas Tech. We do. Joe, you and I have been pounding that drum since they went in the portal and did what they did. But the bottom line remains, you should have blown them out. You said 40. My brother in Christ, they had 4 turnovers and barely got 21 points. I mean, let me give an example about my team that I criticize. Mm-hmm. LSU had 5 interceptions and didn't score 13 points, and everybody said they were the worst offense in the country. You had 4 total turnovers and barely got 21 points against a much inferior opponent. Like, I'm not trying to be rude. It's just the truth. So, yeah. Hot take. I think Morton is the weak link. I really do.
Dude, he made a lot of big throws. I think
he also was under 40% on third downs throwing the football. Hold on now. If any one of those quarterbacks in the championship series, I would have told you would have been below 40% on third down throwing the football. If I would have told, like if Ty Simpson would have done that, what would we have said? If Fernando Mendoza or Julian Sain would have done that, and by the way, against BYU.
That's fair. I think that Morton is one of the weaker quarterbacks in the playoff field. I push back slightly because I think that he did make a number of really big throws. I think that it's a little bit more of a difficult path for him because he's been banged up and he's
Fair.
every time it feels like he's building momentum, he's out with an injury. I think that the bigger issue for me, and this is going to sound a little weird, their run game not being as explosive consistently as they could be is the one area where I have a little bit of pause. They are, and I'm pulling it up right now, offensively in EPA per rush, they are 107th. So they're not a team that consistently produces a lot of big plays. And it feels like there's a lot of times on drives, and this happened early in the game where they should have hit the ground running, and it felt like they were a little slow. They have too many plays where they get stopped at like the line of scrimmage and they're just not getting like some real big burst right off the bat. That to me, I think is a really underrated issue for them. EPA per rush is one of the most underlying issues that I don't think a lot of people talk about because it helps depict how successful are you at running the ball. Is it a couple of big plays that carry your rushing production, or is it every single time you run the ball, are you able to produce positive plays out of it? That to me, I think could continue to build their offense more if they're able to do that better. But doing that against Oregon is not going to be the game that you're going to suddenly fix that.
100% agree. All right. Let's get to we have 11. I haven't checked the comments because I don't like checking the comments. We have 1089, 1,090 comments. Anyway. All right. Elks says before Joe goes on the rant, don't lose to Miami.
Don't lose to Indiana. Elks, come on, man. I thought I was pretty level-headed. I didn't do the whole like Notre Dame got effed over by him. I didn't think that would have been a fair thing for me to do. I'm just going to repeat that. There were arguments to be made. For all
the matter is that they have no business being out while James Madison and Tulane are in.
That's the bigger issue. Yeah.
Tulane should be out. Notre Dame should be in. Texas should be in for James Madison. I think we all agree with that.
Yes.
Alex also says, hey, Joe, join a conference and don't have to worry. I mean, Joe, you should go all in on Elks talking, saying that Ohio State was the most dominant team in the country, and then them getting dog walked by in moments and times offensively by Indiana. Don't take that shit. Don't take it.
You just said it, so you're 100% right. Here's the only thing that if there is a year where not being in a conference hurts Notre Dame, it's this year.
Can we just be blunt? It did kill you. And to be a little blunt with you, it's gonna keep killing you because if you have 2 losses again, this is gonna keep becoming a factor. If they don't change this, with all due respect to Notre Dame, I love that you have your independence. However, it's gonna keep killing you when and Joe, listen to me. Don't yell at me. The truth of the matter is you have teams like Alabama and A&M who have tougher strengths of schedule than you do. And that is going to continue to kill you when it matters the most. It is.
Okay.
Whether Notre Dame people want to admit that or not, it will kill you.
Here is the one. I'm just so out of energy for the. No, you're not wrong. Here's the thing: is that like Notre Dame, I think Notre Dame understood that they can't lose 2 games in order for them to get into the playoff. I'm just gonna be straight up with suggesting this. The ACC was incredibly vocal against Notre Dame, who is a member of their conference and all of their other sports. The ACC meddling, if there was some, would not shock me. I'm just going to leave it at that. If there was not some sort of how are you going to
kind of catch-22 though, because they got to defend Miami. Miami's actually in their conference. So I saw a lot of what you're talking about, but the thought that I had was you got to defend Miami though. They're in between a rock and a hard place.
Well, they could have just not said anything.
They can't do that either, and they can't do that either.
Notre Dame needs to end their affiliation with the ACC. That was, in all seriousness, if they had any pride.
And here's another thing: if Notre Dame would have gotten in and Alabama would have gotten out, good and damn well the SEC would have canceled all future games with Notre Dame, and you know that. Especially if it would have happened to Bama. Oh man, yeah. Come on.
Well, by the way, now that argument's gone out the window for don't schedule Notre Dame. Now everybody should schedule Notre Dame, because if you beat Notre Dame, you get yourself into the playoff. Congrats.
100%. Des says Joe gonna cry.
Eat shit. Seriously. Like I've never backed down on any of these things. I was wrong. Well, the playoff decided I was wrong. The playoff committee decided I was wrong.
No. You're not wrong. The system put in two teams that don't deserve it. And because we are in a society that we think participation trophies are worth a fuck, we're going to continue to do this. Let's just be honest. You can be an adult and understand what's being said here is just the truth.
Yeah.
Joe, me and you built this from the ground up. Nobody gave us shit.
No.
Now, if somebody like Royce Pierce wants to continue to come in here and giving 5 gifts to the YouTube channel, you more than welcome can do that. Thank you so much, Royce.
Thanks,
we greatly appreciate it. He also sends a $20 super chat, says, I know you're upset, Joe, but hey, we woke up another day. God bless and hope you have a great day, guys.
Thanks,
I think Royce is the most level-headed human being in these comments.
I needed that today. Thank you, Royce. Makes me feel better.
Frank Castle comes in here with a $2 super chat, says, I try to warn everybody about this shit show. He also says, I don't give a bleep about Notre Dame, but Tulane and James Madison should not be in over them, Vandy, or Texas. Hell, I would even add USC in there too. I would agree with that.
Yeah,
I don't think they belong in there over BYU, if I'm being blunt.
Oh, absolutely. We've said it like 5 times today, and I'm glad that our listener base agrees with us, because I think everybody is sensible, because a lot of us watch a lot of these games. I watched the American Conference Championship and the G5 games on Friday, and I wasn't impressed.
Well, and here's another thing. It should have been, when we had these discussions during the offseason, it should have been proven last year. Actually, to be blunt with you, it was proven last year. But because it was Clemson, nobody really said anything. And because Ashton Genty was a really good back, nobody said anything. People wanted to push back. Clemson should have not been in the playoff. SMU should have not been in the playoff.
Neither JMU or Tulane have a prospect on their team that would get drafted in the top 100 picks. That's a problem. That's not a good football team. I know that neither team has a prospect that would get picked that high. And maybe someone rises during the draft prospect that I'm unaccounting for. As of right now, neither of those teams have a football player that's that good.
I don't disagree. Fravel with a $5 super chat says, screw the ACC contract. SEC bias is out of control. Burn the college football playoff. Bama is the first conference champion game loser to not drop in CFP history. We are a natty contender. That's not true. TCU lost the Big 12 and didn't move. That literally is not true. TCU lost to Kansas State 3 years ago and did not move.
I don't disagree with that. I would have, to be quite honest with you, if we were going to move up Miami into the playoff field, they should be ahead of Bama.
I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree.
You can't lose that bad and not move back. They lost by 3 scores. You can't lose that bad and just stay where you are.
I'm going to use the Notre Dame. I'm going to use the Notre Dame already. Don't lose to SMU. After all the yelling you and I did, I just used your argument to do mine. Fravel also says people scream that Notre Dame was only in because of their brand, but nobody will say Bama is only in because they didn't drop because of the patch on their jersey. That's not true. Hold on, Joe. I'm not trying to be rude here. That's not true. They have legitimately the number 6 strength of schedule in the country, and look at the wins that they actually do have. They had the best win on the road in the country. They beat 7 top 35 FPI opponents. They beat Vanderbilt. They beat Georgia. Those teams are in the top 15. Notre Dame can't say that. I'm not trying to be rude. Their resume is better than yours.
Look,
go ahead.
I was going to say, as much as I would like to continue to knock Alabama for getting dogged against one of the best teams in the country. And I think that it is something that needs to be discussed that we didn't even really talk about earlier. Sadly, to your point, though, they do have a good. If we're going off of this premise of building out resumes to evaluate teams, Alabama has one of the best resumes, so they have to.
They have to. I mean, then what do the games matter then? Okay. Okay, I'm almost done. Fravel, he's so we had to go live today because we have a Christmas party, so Ben's fired up. He's ready.
Oh man, I'm sure.
Fravel with a $5 super chat says, Joe, you are usually one of the more positive Notre Dame fans. I need you to walk me off the cliff. I legit don't care about college football, zero integrity.
I care about the CFP is what he meant. But look, here, Fravel, here is if you want to be more positive, I tweeted this. They're really not going to lose many guys to the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
They're losing Jeremiah Love and probably Jadarian Price, which is huge. But their running back recruiting has been tremendous. This Notre Dame team has every capability to go undefeated next season. I think that this year what cost them early on was that youth. Now that youth has been battle tested, they go undefeated. They will be a top 4 team. If we want to be optimistic, Notre Dame, and I like, trust me, I was about to fire off a million tweets, be like, F this, F that, F Miami. Like I said, no, this is the positive way to look at it. It's disappointing, but Notre Dame has a bright future ahead. They just gotta. Next year, they will be a legitimate national title threat. And I said that every time we saw CJ Carr, they will have one of the best quarterbacks in the country next season. When a lot of these guys go to the NFL, they are effectively equipped in position to go on a run next year.
I don't disagree with that. I mean, listen, you just like I'm looking at your schedule right now. 1 second.
Yeah, I was pulling that up too.
They
got Wisconsin, Rice, Michigan State. At Purdue.
Oh, this schedule sucks.
They go undefeated. They get in.
Well, of course they do, but that schedule sucks. That schedule's brutal. Jesus. Justin says, poor Rudy didn't get in with a $2 super chat. I did want Georgia in a Notre Dame rematch.
I did too. I think
both of those teams went through some of the worst chaos last year with the terrorist attack and all that. Insane. Lions with a $10 super chat says OSU had a number of short yardage situations. Did CJ Donaldson get a single carry a couple of games ago? They have a couple carries with a tight end. Will Howard factor was underrated last year. Yeah, I mean, he's not wrong there. And Joe, they just can't run the football when they need to.
Yeah, the interior of their offensive line is something that we acknowledged previously, and I think it was accentuated again against Indiana. When you face a team that's got really good middle linebackers and a really good interior defensive lineman, that was where you got exposed. And yeah, I do think that the general decision-making in those short yard, it's why are we calling a sneak with a 190-pound quarterback? He's not Jalen Hurts. Guys, he's not Jalen Hurts. Brian Hartline, by the way, we didn't talk about this. Holy shit, man. This has been a bad week for Brian Hartline. You announce you're leaving. There's the commitment flips that happened last second. And then you put up that dud. Oh my God, you were not prepared. Do we see a Kiffin situation where they just tell him to go about his way? And
you notice Ryan Day had a play sheet and was going through it during the entire game.
Dude, I wouldn't be shocked if that doesn't happen. And I think that they should.
Guess what? Call Chip Kelly back.
Shit.
It's the same offense.
Is it though? I think it's a little. I don't think it's
sure, but I'm sure it's the same terminology. They probably didn't go away from the terminology.
They should just rehire him. By the way, that
1,000%. Lions says Mendoza is Joe Montana reincarnated. Okay, calm down. Indiana with potential rematches against Oregon and Ohio State will be box office. Maybe the greatest natty ever. All right, he's not reincarnated of Joe Montana. Calm down.
Yeah, we gotta. I love Joe Montana. We can't.
We need to calm down with that.
Fun fact: I was named after Joe Montana.
Were you really?
I was. Joe Montana and Joe Namath. That was the why.
I was named after Joe Montana too. My middle name, but instead of Joe Montana, it's Joe Montana. Alex with a $5 super chat says Ohio State got into the red zone and went 75 tight end personnel. Hope that shit stops. Stop playing Bennett Christian over Jeremiah and Tate. I don't disagree.
Yeah, I don't know if that's like I don't know if when he's saying 75 personnel, if it's him trying to be hyperbolic. But to the point, it did feel weird that you suddenly thought, oh, now we're gonna line up and out physical you and shit when your biggest plays came from targeting
The
Smith.
number one player in the country. Get him the football. Or Cornell Tate. Don't be an idiot. Aaron with a $5 super chat says participation trophies for the G5 is BS. Absolutely insulting the Notre Dame, Texas, Vandy, BYU. Completely agree. It's participation trophies, dude. I mean, there's no other way to describe it here. Plants with a $5 super chat says, I'd rather see Notre Dame versus Ole Miss than another boring group of 5 getting rolled, but Notre Dame should join a conference tomorrow, for real. I mean, it's gonna put pressure on Notre Dame to join a conference.
Sure. The other thing, though, is Notre Dame versus Ole Miss would have been electric. I mean, that would have been an awesome game. That would have been a freaking awesome game.
It's going to be the biggest game in Mississippi football history. A playoff game at home? Are you kidding me?
But now you get to play Tulane. Stupid.
What a joke. Elks sends a $5 super chat, says the best tackle I saw all night was Indiana's O-line tackling our D-line the entire night. It was a problem.
Both sides, though, but it was both sides. Both sides were holding. We can't do that, man. We can't.
It was. Marshall says, hey, Joe, Notre Dame would have made the college football playoff if they were in the conference. I mean, they probably would have, Joe. I mean, I'm just being honest. They probably would have. They're not going to keep out a Big Ten Notre Dame team over an ACC Miami. They wouldn't have done it. I'm sorry, but they wouldn't have done it. But you also got to set a precedent that week 1 games have to matter. Did you hear Saban? Did you hear Saban on game day? He says, I would call all ADs during the offseason and tell them to cancel their week 1 games. I mean, he's not wrong. I mean, the Miami thing, yes. Bama's leaking oil, but you can't take away for what they did the last 8 weeks. Joe, they faced 6 ranked teams at the time that they faced them.
I do think that maybe we should have conference games start early because we can't have a college football schedule where week 0 and week 1 is all nothing games because then that's just boring. I don't want to watch a bunch of FCS games for the first month of the season. There's a lot of things that need to change.
Alex says, Sand fall down 2 weeks in a row on sneaks. Yeah, not good.
He's 190 pounds. Stop. Don't ever call a sneak with him. You're not fooling anyone because no one's afraid of him. He's 190 pounds. You have a dump truck running back. Put him under center if you're going to call that shit.
I completely agree. Marshall with a $10 super chat says, bracket reminds me of the SEC West versus East. You compare the top to bottom. One side is significantly more challenging and to get to the Natty, Georgia and Ohio State on one side versus Indiana versus Texas Tech. Yeah, but Oregon's over there too. The right side of the bracket is much more tougher than the left side of the bracket. That's for damn sure.
I will say their changing the seating and all that stuff and the buys, we got a good forget for the G5 teams for a second. Outside of that, we got a good bracket this year. We got good, fair matchups that are going to be opportunities to prove that everybody was seated where they deserve to be. There's
not like last year.
Nothing. No.
Yeah, not like last year. Quentin with a $5 super chat says Arch Manning for Heisman and Texas for Natty in 2026.
I said this after the A&M game. Man, we can start doing it. Let's start doing it.
You already did it one time last year. Don't do it again.
Yeah.
Don't do it again. I'm picking Georgia until somebody proves me that they can beat them. Prove to me that you can beat them.
Fair.
J-Rock with a $6 super chat says Notre Dame had the third best odds to win the Natty. At what point do we put the best teams in? See, here's the problem I have with the odds. The odds said that Ohio State should have won last night and they lost.
That's fair. The odds are never always right, which is why I always reject, just because a line is a certain way does not mean that the game is going to go in a certain direction. But did you know that Notre Dame, they put together a hypothetical line for Notre Dame versus Oklahoma, Alabama, and Miami, and Notre Dame was favored in
all of them. Yeah, favored in all of them.
So that means nothing now.
No. Reports, says Alex, coming out of Ohio State tried to poach Patricia this week after basically firing Jim Knowles. Keep your hands off of our DC.
They should keep Knowles, by the way. I think that they should keep. I don't think Jim Knowles was the problem.
We didn't even get to a big. Well, no, we did a recording. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Miles with a $2 super chat says they had Justice Haynes last year.
That's the craziest part about all this is they let that dude walk, and he was the number 1 running back in the portal.
Yep. By far.
Imagine if they had Ahmad Hardy, dude. Imagine if they had him or Quan Lacey. Oh my God.
Yeah, I hear Quan Lacey could be on the move. I'm just going to leave that one alone. Alan with a $5 super chat says, Blake, let's see if the power rankings for the SEC are real. Last year, they said the same shit. Big Ten dominated the SEC, was 1-5. I call BS on the power rankings. I mean, if you're going by bowls, I mean, again, you had a fullback as the inside slot receiver for South Carolina. I mean, I'm going to keep bringing that up.
Yeah, I don't know if.
I mean, I don't go based off of this year's bowl games anymore. Marshall with a $5 super chat says, Joe, if your hand was forced, would you be man enough to join the SEC? Go ahead and tell Blake you're scared of Death Valley. Notre Dame at night in Tiger Stadium would hit like crack, and me and you would kill each other.
Yeah, probably. But here's the thing: Notre Dame. Why would Notre Dame? The SEC wouldn't add Notre Dame because they're not in their footprint. They have been the one conference that has tried to
schedule Notre Dame.
No. I'm saying that the SEC would not add them as a team.
Oh,
they would not add them if they join a conference. I don't think that they join the ACC after the way that the ACC acted. I think that they would probably join the Big Ten, but at the same time, they have no reason to join a conference
until you keep getting left out of the playoff. Luna Joker with a $10 super chat says, honestly, as a Miami fan, I am happy they got in, but I'm not happy they dropped Notre Dame for a second G5 team. The game between Tulane and North Texas was just missed call city.
Well, see, I'm glad that we've got some sensible Miami fans that understand that, like, and I kind of jokingly tweeted this about Alabama, but Notre Dame and Miami shouldn't be the enemies of one another. They're more tied to one another than anyone wanted to admit, and they both should be in the playoff. But now we're
McCoys, but the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Never forget. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. It's an old saying for a reason. Justin says, Blake, I feel like you're secretly a Georgia fan, man. You always praise them. Thanks for all the love.
I praise you guys too. What the hell? What the hell?
Here's the thing. I get labeled a Georgia homer. I'm not from Georgia. I'm not even remotely close, but here's the problem. I said that they were going to win the SEC back-to-back years and got dog-walked in the preseason. Who won the SEC back-to-back years? It's not about me being a homer for them. I'm an LSU homer. I mean, clearly it's my favorite team. But someone's going to have to tell me that I'm a homer for them when they keep winning the fucking conference. I mean, like, you get what I'm saying? Like, how can I be a homer and right?
Yeah. No, you're just good at predicting.
I'm just good at predicting. All right. By the way, we got like 60% of our playoff teams in this year, Joe. Did you know that?
I got to go back and look at my bracket, but I think you might be right.
See y'all tomorrow. Peace.